Hey there. Welcome back to Insurance World TV, your premier online insurance education channel. Here, we strive to break down complex insurance terms for you. Today, we are diving deep into the world of tender security, also known as bid bonds. If you've ever been involved in the procurement or tendering process, especially in the public sector, this is a term you need to understand. We'll take you from the basics right up to expert-level knowledge. So, let's get started. Definition of a bid bond/tender security. First things first, what exactly is a tender security or bid bond? In simple terms, it's a financial guarantee provided by a bidder when participating in a tender process. The purpose of this bond is to assure the client, often a government or large organization, that the bidder is serious, financially capable, and committed to fulfilling the terms of the tender if they win. Think of it as a safety net for the client, ensuring they won't be left hanging if the winning bidder pulls out or fails to meet the contract conditions. A bid bond is typically a percentage of the bid amount, commonly ranging from 2% to 5%. However, in some cases, a procuring entity may give a defined bid bond amount. The higher the value of the contract, the higher the bond required. So, when is tender security required? Bid bonds are usually mandatory in larger, competitive tenders, especially in government procurement or when dealing with high-value contracts. It's often a requirement set out in the tender documents. If you're looking to bid on a project worth a substantial amount, the client wants to know that you won't just walk away after winning the tender. This is where the bid bond comes into play. If the tender you're eyeing doesn't mention a bid bond requirement, that's great, but it's always a good idea to check carefully. Missing this requirement can disqualify you outright from the process. Now, let's talk about where you can get a bid bond. Typically, you can obtain one from banks, insurance companies, or specialized financial institutions. These entities evaluate your financial stability and assess the project before issuing a bid bond. The process can take anywhere from a few hours to several days, so plan ahead. Make sure to approach a reputable institution, one with experience in issuing bid bonds for the type of project you're tendering for. Remember, the cost of a bid bond varies but is usually a small fee relative to the bond value, often between 1% and 3% of the total bond amount. When preparing your bid bond, here are the key things you need to look out for. Number 1. Value of the bid bond. Ensure that the bid bond is the correct amount as specified in the tender documents. Number 2. Validity period. Check how long the bond needs to be valid. Some tenders require bonds to be valid for several months after the tender closes, so don't let it expire prematurely. Number 3. Conditions. Be clear on the conditions under which the bid bond can be forfeited. If your bid is accepted, failing to sign the contract or provide performance security could trigger this. Number 4. Legal terms. Make sure the bond is legally sound and recognized by the client. Some clients are strict about which institutions can issue valid bonds. Consequence of not supplying a bid bond to a tender that requires the same. So, what happens if you don't have a bid bond when it's required? In one word, disqualification. If the tender requires a bid bond and you fail to provide one, your bid is likely to be rejected without even being considered, regardless of how good your offer is. Even worse, if you win the tender but cannot fulfill the contract and don't have a valid bond in place, you could face financial penalties or legal action, depending on the terms of the tender. To wrap things up, here's a quick expert tip. Make sure to review all tender documents carefully, engage a trusted financial partner to help secure your bid bond, and never rush the process. Understanding tender security is crucial to participating in large-scale procurement processes. At the expert level, knowing when to negotiate terms with the issuing institution or adjusting your bid bond based on contract specifics can make all the difference in standing out among competitors. Being proactive ensures you never miss out on a tender opportunity due to avoidable errors. That's it for today's video. If you found this useful, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to Insurance World TV for more insightful videos like this. See you next time.